And we are live.
Welcome to the Quiet. Welcome to the Critical Christian Podcast. We're your host Dan
And Justin. We ask critical questions about the Bible and provide questionable answers.
No,
And
they're always good answers.
I think.
Wait, there.
Yeah, there you go. Is your wife watching?
Probably not, but maybe one day she will.
Well, your efforts are not in vain if she watches this ever.
Yeah, this is posterity.
I know she's.
Yeah.
Anyways, we are in Exodus 12 this week. We're going to be talking about the instructions for the Passover. And there's a lot of instructions in this section.
Sure
some
is.
Of the audience might glaze over.
I'm going to as well.
But there's some interesting stuff. There is some repetition. So we're not going to talk about everything in the passage, but we're going to talk about quite a bit of it. So buckle up. If the dry passages, like the festival instructions, are a difficult read for you, it'll be even more difficult listening to us talk about them. But we'll try to make them as interesting as possible. Some of the instructions are more interesting than others. Dan says no, none of them are interesting.
No, just leave, guys. All two of you, just leave.
Well, with that being said, it is a long chapter.
We better get on it, huh?
Yeah, it's a long chapter. Now remember, this is still technically the 10th plague. We started with the warning of the 10th plague, but the babies aren't dead yet. The firstborn of the Egyptians aren't all dead yet. We get the instructions for the Passover, and then the Passover happens. Execute Passover.
Hey,
So
God's working on it. He's working on it.
that last plague really gets a good chunk of the book there.
It does, yeah. Very chunkified.
So let's jump right in then and read your first section of text here, Dan.
Nice. All right, let's do it. Oh, okay, let's do it.
You know, the ones in your notes?
Yeah. I was just saying this chapter has a lot of verses.
There's a bunch.
Okay, so verse 1.
That's where we usually start.
Nice. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. Shall be the first month of the year for you." So what's going on here? So why did God decide this would be the first month on the calendar? Wasn't there already a calendar? Isn't it going to confuse a whole lot of people? So I checked. All right, I checked on the internet, and it says that this month would have been between March and April. So, like for everybody else, and I guess it's January for them now. So I just assume, yeah. I don't know. I also kind of have to wonder what makes Passover such a big deal that God was like, let's start the whole entire year on this date. Because, even killing the firstborns didn't really change the Pharaoh's mind. So it's not like this incident was what actually freed them. What really freed them was Moses parting the sea and then drowning all the Egyptian forces. So, why is this January 1st?
Well, the most likely conclusion is that because this was already the first of the year. So if we go to the Babylonian calendar, the Babylonian calendar is actually the same as the Jewish calendar. And let me read off the months of the Babylonian calendar. The very first month, and I'll put it on the screen. The very first month in the Babylonian calendar is Nisan in Hebrew. Obviously, we call it March or April. Sanu would be in the Semitic tongue, the Akkadian tongue. So they were already following an established calendar. And so this served as an explanation in their mythos as to how it became the first month.
Well, this is just some... So like Genesis, where they're trying to explain why they do things. So this is just... Are we allowed to swear on YouTube?
You can swear all you want, yeah.
Is this just bullshit then?
Well, I don't know if that's the case because what we don't have is we don't have any material evidence from the time period of Moses as to whether or not the Hebrew people or them leaving Egypt practice something different than the Babylonian calendar.
Hey, look, it says the Lord says this, but the Lord didn't say it if they were just trying to make up a reason. Also, how many people out there were like, hey, why do we start in January? This is weird.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Nobody would ask that, right? Nobody asks it now, right?
so there's a couple questions, right? So first of all, if they were in Egypt, they would have been practicing a different set of months. They are on the lunar calendar as well, although they had a solar calendar in ancient Egypt at some point in time. But the fact of the matter was, their calendar was slightly different than the Hebrew calendar. What it seems to be, though, is that it says here, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, in the land of Egypt, this month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month. It doesn't actually say which month that is. It doesn't say Nisan, right? But we know that Nisan would have been the first month, right? So it's hard to say, reading the text of Exodus, if prior to this event or this time period, if Nisan wasn't their first month, maybe they had a different custom and they changed their custom to align with the Babylonian custom, which was the predominant calendar of the time period. But the fact of the matter is, there's some funny stuff, because if they were, why would God change the calendar of the Hebrew people to match the Babylonian calendar, right? So the first month in Hebrew is Nisan. In Akkadian or Babylonian, it's Nisanu. Aru in Akkadian for the second month, and Iyar or Ar in Hebrew. And same thing with Samanu and Savan, Demuzu and Tammuz, which is named after a person. Demuzid and Tammuz were the same person in ancient Babylon and Assyria. So all of the Hebrew months are actually completely just copy the Babylonian calendar, which existed long before the Hebrews were around. So it definitely kind of causing the question, like, how is it that God is like organizing the Hebrew calendar when really it's just a copy of the one that came before it, right? Unless God just liked the Babylonian calendar and was like, hey, you're on the Babylonian calendar now. You're not in Egypt anymore. Now you're on this one. That's possible too, right?
So what's the real answer?
I mean, the real answer for me is I've always taken this as an explanation for why Nisan is the first month for them, and also why this festival is such a big deal for them. This is the biggest festival of the Jewish culture. There's no bigger festival than Passover. That's the big one.
I don't know why. Seems like a lot of things were more important. You know what I mean? Like this one didn't even do anything. Why don't they have the parting of the sea festival?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say.
Or the
Well, you know what Christians say? They would say, well, God obviously had to institute the custom of the Passover so you would recognize Jesus when he came. Jesus is the Passover lamb. I don't think that's a good reasoning post hoc.
that doesn't make sense to me, so I guess I'm okay that it doesn't make sense. Or something.
So, but the Passover festival, what we find in there's multiple festivals that they practice. They did just like their law codes. They codified their festivals as though it was commanded by God. They integrated the festival, gave reasons for why these festivals existed. But I happen to believe that these festivals do commemorate some sort of a historic artifact.
Okay.
Right? There probably was a contingent of people that that left Egypt, right? And then upon escaping Egypt, through a huge old festival to celebrate escaping Egypt.
Right. I mean, that makes sense why you'd throw a festival for that.
Right.
But just for a lot of, firstborns getting killed.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. A lot of what I see here is like there's probably a kernel of real history here, and then they built this big old story around it. It's like the Charleston Heston movie. It's such a good movie, even if it's not true, right? And in these ancient mythologies, just like the Epic of Gilgamesh, they really build up these narratives to make them grandiose. Because like the grander the narrative is, the harder it is to forget. Plus, if you're telling your kids a story, got to make it good. Yeah, they're not gonna listen to the old fart telling a story if it's a bad story.
All right, that makes sense to you. All right. I don't know.
But yeah,
It just seems weird.
This is theoretically how they came up, or how they got the calendar situated the way that it's.
And there and it was different.
Well, we don't know. We don't know what.
So this is pointless.
I'm just saying that there's information we don't know.
Yeah. Do we or the Jewish people now celebrate it on January 1st?
Well, no. The Passover changes. First of all, it's not January 1st.
Okay.
It's April-ish.
But that's the first day.
It's around Easter. It's the first day of the Gregorian calendar.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first day of the lunar calendar. Lunar calendar, as we just saw, was in March and April.
Well, I didn't know what you were talking about. I just tuned you out there.
Yeah. So their new year wouldn't have been January 1st. In fact, you can find their new year every year on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah 2024 is going to be in October the 2nd. So they count their new year at the harvest.
That just happened.
Yeah.
Wait, what? What happened? Oh, the new year?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh. I wonder what they do for the real New Year's.
I don't know.
They just sit it out?
I'm not sure. I don't know what you mean. You mean January 1st, like the American holiday?
Yes.
I'm sure they celebrate the American New Year.
I said the real New Year's. I think that
the real
sense.
one.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes sense. Everyone has a different New Year.
No, they don't. No. I mean, January 1st is a new year for everybody. Currently, rather. You know what I mean? Okay. All right.
Anyway, so fact of the matter is, this is an explanation of the calendar. How we got from this being the beginning of the year to Rosh Hashanah. I'm not entirely sure of the history. I used to know it, and I've kind of forgot it. But that's how it's celebrated today, at least. And Rosh is Hebrew for the beginning of something.
So this happened in April, and God is like, all right, this is going to be the first of the year for you.
Essentially. This shall be the first month of the year for you. Yeah, and I've read this in Hebrew before. It's very broken text. Not broken. I mean, it's a very... It's a clunky text to read in Hebrew. There's actually a couple ways you could probably translate it. But I think the way the NRSV translated it here makes a lot of sense. Basically just saying this is the first month of the months.
Okay.
Which is what it says in Hebrew.
All right.
Versus, what are you saying there?
Can we spend 15 minutes on each verse and still get done?
Probably not.
Okay.
I think there's only 51 of them.
Yeah.
Take long enough.
Oh.
All right, on to the next.
All right. This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you.
Read that.
No. Oh, yes. Oops. Okay.
Really cooking with gas tonight.
Okay. Tell the whole congregation of Israel that on the 10th of this month, they are to take a lamb for each family, a lamb for each household. If a household is too small for a whole lamb, it shall join its closest neighbor in obtaining one. The lamb shall be divided in proportion to the number of people who eat of it. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a year-old male. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats.
Is that interesting?
Yeah. So you can take a lamb from the sheep or the goats.
That's right. People read over that.
No, look, I even wrote it down.
I know. I was glad that you observed that.
So I'm pretty sure a lamb is a baby sheep and a baby goat is Well, it's not a baby lamb, you know.
Right.
The internet says that goats and sheep are related, but that's about it.
Are they really?
That's what it says. Well, don't they both have like fuzzy fur or something?
Well, I mean, I don't know genetically if they're related, but I do know that like
Why does that just destroy your argument?
I didn't have an argument.
Oh,
I do know in Hebrew you would use the same word to refer to a baby lamb and a baby goat typically.
that's confusing for everybody involved.
I know, and same thing like with flocks. So there's a Hebrew word, zone, which means a flock of either sheep or goats.
So they're like bringing some sheep, and then they bring sheep, and they're like, I didn't want sheep, I wanted sheep.
Basically.
That's great.
Well, they do have other words to specifically refer to goats and specifically refer to sheep. And you could use other words like modifiers to refer to a young sheep. But if you're talking generically just about a baby animal of the flock, then you can use a generic word, which is what we have here. In fact, let me see. Text. Oh yeah, so they use say. Yeah, so there's some generic words they get used in this passage. If they wanted to be specific, they would have been specific. But it's interesting that most people forget that you could use a goat. And how many people would be offended if you called Jesus the Passover goat?
People who haven't read the Bible, I guess.
Right.
So many.
But I was thinking about that because like everyone is so used to thinking of Jesus as the Passover lamb. Like he came and he was humble and you know
what? I kind of like Passover goat.
right.
Greatest of all time, you know?
But we like to think of Jesus as the lamb who came and was docile and whatnot. But I mean, he very well could have been a goat.
Well, he wasn't very docile.
A whole different
anyhow,
imagery.
You know?
The personality between a goat and a lamb is pretty distinct in terms
Yeah.
of like behavior patterns. You can see why the New Testament authors would lean towards Passover lamb instead of Passover goat.
Yeah.
I've had lamb though. Lamb's delicious.
Yeah, it's not. But I don't like to eat things that are really cute.
Fair enough.
That's why I stick to chicken and cows, because they're ugly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right.
So who pays for this lamb? Just the families?
What do you mean by pay?
Well, everybody's got to go buy one somewhere, right?
Not. I mean, not really. I mean, some people would buy them, and some people would already have them.
So if you're too small of a household, that must mean it must mean lamb must feed a certain amount of people.
Yeah. So you got to remember, a lot of these people kept their own goats and lambs as well.
Now,
it wasn't like today where you had like the local farmer.
Did they eat the lamb, or did they generally use it for its wool?
They used it for produce like milk, wool.
So it's kind of a big deal to have to kill one and eat it, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to do that, would you?
It's a very big deal, yeah.
You'd be like, wait a minute, I'm just throwing this away to be used as meat?
Well, no, they usually they farmed enough animals that they could be used for ritual purposes. It wasn't like it was an unexpected inconvenience.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, they are big on the sacrifices, aren't they?
Yeah, it was part of the budget for sure. Yeah. So, so you know, next time you're doing a Passover Seder, suggest maybe a little bit of goat.
I think I will.
Might be gamey.
I don't know. Goat sounds not quite as bad as lamb because they're not as cute.
Right. Yeah. I actually. Yeah. Let's move on to the next.
All right. Number 6. You shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. Then the whole assembled congregation of Israel shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the lamb that same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roasted over the fire with its head, legs, and inner organs. Were people eating lamb raw and God had to put a stop to that?
That's a good point. I don't know if that's the implication. I can see why you might think that. Yeah, I mean, you could technically, like, you could boil it.
What's wrong with boiling it anyhow?
Nothing's wrong with boiling it. Like, so, for example,
Yeah, but it says right there, don't do it.
right. I know, but there are methods. I'm saying there's multiple methods of cooking your animal.
Yeah,
Roasting it over fire was only one of them.
right.
Boiling it was a very popular method.
Well, I'm saying, why did God not want it boiled?
Oh, because it's a Passover night. You want to be able to take it with you and not have it spoil over. Well, actually, you can't leave any of it overnight, according to the Passover festival. There's actually a good point. Why? I mean, why does God care if it's boiled versus roasted? I assume it's got to be a pragmatic reason. You know, how do you get I don't know, 600,000 people to boil something? Might not even have like the appropriate cookware for that party, but everyone had fire roasted.
Well, then just say, hey, boiled if you want, or don't.
Because I mean, it's not that they didn't have the utensils to boil, but typically when you talk about meat that's boiled, it's usually something that's happening at one of the cultic centers, like it's happening at the temple or it's happening at one of the shrines. It wasn't necessarily that they had these big boiling vats at the home. They had boiling vessels, smaller vessels, right? But if you're going to boil like a whole goat, that was something that you might do at like an actual facility. Whereas if you have a goat and a party of people together, you can just burn it out back over the fire.
But nobody was eating them raw. This was just a weird thing. That's
Yeah.
in there for no reason at all.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was eating it raw. And there might be another reason why they wanted it roasted as opposed to boiled. I'd be curious to know. The commentary on the shelf behind us by Jacob Milgram probably has a good explanation why that's the case, but I don't think we want to waste a ton of time on that, being that we've got 51 verses.
Yeah, the message doesn't say anything different about boiling it. Just don't do it, or eating it raw rather. Don't eat it raw. And it's like, okay, just all right.
Yeah,
sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ready?
Sure.
Don't want to beat a dead lamb here.
Hand me that Exodus commentary.
Is it this one?
Nope, on the Bibles.
This one here?
The one
This one?
literally says Exodus.
This one?
The only one
This
that says
one?
Exodus.
Two of them say Exodus.
Obviously, chapter.
This one.
Nope.
Oh, this one. Got it. First try.
All right, go ahead.
All right, let me. Okay. Number 10. You shall. I'm reading this.
Yeah.
You shall let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until the morning, you shall burn with fire. This is how you shall eat it. Your loins, your loins skirted, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. It is the Passover of the Lord. I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from human to animal, and all of the gods of Egypt I will execute. And on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord.
Dun dun dun.
So he's killing all the firstborn animals too, huh? I didn't know there would even be any.
Yeah. Well, how could there possibly be any animals left?
I mean, I guess they started, birthing them, and God is like, nah, not yet.
Let's see what this is. What one of my Old Testament professors that I had in undergrad says about the roasting.
Mm-hmm.
Says roasting the meat assured that all of the blood would be quickly and thoroughly removed. But again, that's I mean they had methods of boiling as well. Says eating the blood of any sacrifice was forbidden in Israel. Yeah, we know that's nothing new. Eating the roasted lamb at night simulated the actual experience of the night of the last plague of Egypt, but for the rescue of Israel, since the entire sacrifice was prepared as a sacred meal, it could not be used as common food and eaten outside the place that God designated. So, to do so would profane it and lead to abuses in the use of the food. But above all, these instructions preserved the sacredness of the meal. That doesn't actually help us at all, because we know for a fact that they had other methods of cooking the meat. For example, the sons of Eli were chastised for taking the meat that was boiled at the shrine at Shiloh. There's other examples of meat being boiled, sacred meat being boiled and whatnot. So
I don't even want to eat lamb, but I'm getting hungry.
I know now I'm thinking
Isn't
about
that
it.
weird?
I love a little bit of lamb.
Oh, I said not lamb.
Watch some lamb chops while we're.
Why does it say on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment? What does that mean?
Yeah, that means exactly what you think it does.
But there aren't any gods.
So traditionally, commentators have taken this to refer to leaders. Like it could be really high up officials. But modern commentators don't do that. Modern commentators generally see this as an actual judgment upon Egypt and the gods of Egypt. Like legitimately. That's literally how it's handled nowadays.
Say that one more time.
It's punishment on the gods. For example, here's what Eugene Carpenter says. It says the people of Egypt will witness Yahweh's judgment on all of the gods of Egypt. This contest is between spiritual forces and religious truth, falsity, in ultimate issues, even more than it is a contest between two political policies. So Yahweh is demonstrating that he's more powerful than the gods of Egypt, just like he had previously.
Oh, the fake ones.
Yeah, just like he was outdoing the sorcerers, and
Okay.
because he was doing all of this so that they would know that Yahweh is the one true God. So now he's doing the final battle is one where he defeats all of Egypt and their gods.
Okay. And did you know that loins girded means to wear your clothing?
Yeah, it means to pull your skirt up or your robe up past your knees, and then you wrap it a belt of some nature around your waist, and then you would tuck it into your belt. So when you wore a robe, in order to gird your loins, you would pull it up and you would tuck it into your belt so that your legs were exposed and you could run without tripping over yourself.
And why would you need to do that while eating?
Because you're ready to leave. You're ready to leave in haste. The same reason why they're not using any leaven. They're leaving in a hurry, baby. Time to go. They're not walking out of there. They're running out of there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why they had to eat it so hurriedly.
So the whole chapter is about doing things in a hurry.
Why?
Because they're leaving in haste.
Don't they have enough time to do this? Why didn't they prepare like a couple hours earlier?
Yeah, it makes you wonder why God wanted everything to happen here so quickly. Like, why? Why did they have to leave in haste? God is in control. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird thing, right?
Why they got to eat it so hurriedly? Right?
Well, my theory has always been that the historical narrative, what probably happened in real life, was that it probably was a nighttime escape, and they only had that one night to prepare for it. They were all going to sneak out, and they're like, but we have to prepare provisions for the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to do everything as quickly as possible. We got to make our bread, but it's not going to have leaven. We've got to roast the meat. Maybe roasting it is quicker than boiling it. Who knows? Maybe all of these original provisions were in order to help them with the escape and going a little bit unnoticed. Although if you've got, hundreds of thousands of people all roasting goats and lambs that night.
Right.
I don't see how you wouldn't notice that.
Man, that's going to be a lot of fire.
I mean, we got 2.5 million Israelites getting ready to escape, and they're not going to notice every single one of them roasting animals and putting blood on their doorposts. No one's going to walk through and be like, "Hey, what's going on there, Eleazar? There's a lot of blood you got there."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, you make a good point. That was it. I get nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Those poor animals.
I didn't know that they were trying to leave tonight.
It's a nighttime exodus.
Well, I didn't know that. I thought they were just preparing for the Passover.
Oh, no, they're leaving, baby.
Why? Because they think it'll be a good enough diversion, maybe?
Well, kind of. This is definitely like one of those smoke screens where you throw the bomb and you leave, and when the smoke clears, you're all gone.
Right.
Kind of one of those situations.
So that's the reason you think?
I think historically that's the reason why the Passover is that it is. I think they were trying to sneak out.
Okay.
I mean, the biblical narrative makes it a little more grandiose. He wants to make a show of it. In fact, he even wants the Egyptians to give over their gold and their silver to the Israelites as they're leaving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they really kind of embellished it. But I think if we think about how it might have really happened historically,
Well, do we have evidence for it historically happening?
there's really not a lot of evidence.
Because you used the word historical, and I thought, ooh, is there something going on I should know about? But there isn't.
I mean, there's evidence that Medic-speaking people from the land of Canaan left Egypt, right? But the manner in which they left is difficult to ascertain.
There's nothing that says, by the way, a lot of people died and they were the firstborns or whatever.
No, we don't have anything like that. I mean,
Egypt was a pretty big place back in the day, right?
well, probably 1 million to 2 million people.
Well, let me say this: how many people were in the world at that point?
Good question. How many people were in the world? I don't know, but Egypt was one of the biggest places on the map.
Okay, so you feel like whatever happens in Egypt, other places are going to hear about it, right?
Maybe. I mean, because each had messengers going back and forth between Anatolia, which is modern day Turkey,
and Egypt, owned pretty much every place, right?
Yep, and they had dealings with the Southern Europeans on the other side of the Mediterranean. So, I mean, people would have heard.
But we have nothing written about
Much. We've got one Greek historian, I forget who, that retells the story of Moses, but it was like way back, way after, like in the 2nd century. The narrative was already part of the mythology.
Right.
So yeah, we don't have a lot of good data to suggest that the Exodus happened in the way that the Bible describes, but there is data to suggest that something vaguely reminiscent to the Exodus could have happened. The most famous book on this particular topic, I'll pull it up real quick, by James Hoffmeyer. We talked about it last week, I believe. Israel in Egypt. Yeah, Israel in Egypt.
I own that book.
I know. Evidence for the authenticity of the Exodus tradition.
Maybe I should read these again.
You should read it. Now that we're going through Exodus.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe I'll scan through it again this week and try to remember the tidbits and whatnot. Anyway, so we move on to the next section.
Sure.
What are we reading here?
13.
Right.
The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt.
Isn't it weird that God needs like a code? Don't come and kill these people.
Right. Yeah. Like the angel of death is going to get confused, right?
Right.
Wait, who do I kill?
Is he not supposed to be all knowing?
I mean, it depends on if it's God who's killing everybody, or if it's like some angels, right?
Well, it's definitely the angel of Yahweh
Well,
that does it.
God, I mean, angels don't know everything, so
No, they don't.
obviously it's just for symbolism, though.
Yeah, right. I think it's symbolism, and they had to come up with a reason why the symbolism
I mean, can you
was.
imagine if an angel accidentally killed somebody he shouldn't have? God would have its ass.
I don't know.
Like, give me your wings, you know?
I mean, that's a good point. How many Israelites do you think was like, nah, I ain't gonna do it?
Right?
And God was like, okay, then. Well, I guess you're gonna get whacked.
I wonder if there were any.
There had to have been some. Because remember, there's in all of history, even in the Bible, there's always been scoffers, even among Israel, who's been like, there's no God. Why are you wasting your time? In
Mm-hmm.
fact, even when they're in the desert after they witness all the miracles, you're
Yeah.
like, what'd you bring us out for? We're going to die in the desert. Let's go back to Egypt. Right?
Yeah, they were silly.
There had to have been some people that were like, I ain't going to do that.
It would have been nice if they wrote in the Bible, by the way, some of them died because they didn't believe or something. That would be useful, right?
Well, their children, theoretically.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, but somebody would have died.
Somebody would, yeah.
Whatever.
You think there were, on the same note, do you think there were Egyptians that saw what the Hebrews were doing? They were like, oh, dang.
I better do this too. I don't know what's going on, but I'm on my cup yet.
I've seen these plagues before, right? So I'm not going to get caught up in this last one. I'm going to do whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Do you think there were some Egyptians that got preserved because God was like, well, there's blood on the doorstep?
Well, because it'd probably be like, well, they do believe in me.
That's a good
Something,
point.
right?
Would they? Yeah. Would God even? Would He know that they were Egyptian, and would He just honor them for their faith?
I feel like he might.
Actually, I would tend to agree with you. That seems to be a trend throughout the Bible that any foreigner that wants to honor Yahweh, Yahweh will honor him back.
Mm-hmm.
Except for those damn Amalekite babies. You're done. Can't do nothing about that, but.
I don't get the reference, but that's okay.
Oh, God commanded all the Amalekites to be.
Did I read that already?
No.
Oh, good, because otherwise I'd be like, what?
But we're going to see it in Exodus. After they get into the wilderness, there's a war with the Amalekites. And after the war with the Amalekites, God is like, you know what? I'm done with these people. Eventually, I'm just going to wipe them off the map.
Mm.
Then later in 2 Samuel, he does.
Okay. And then they just go to heaven forever, right?
I mean, theoretically.
Isn't that how that works? Nobody knows.
I mean, according to the Old Testament, you would go to the grave. Then on the last day, you would be resurrected. It's not necessarily like you would go to heaven right away. Like you would go to an intermediate place, like Sheol. Everyone goes to Sheol, but then during the resurrection of the dead, you would be risen up from Sheol and restored to life again.
Yeah. I'd love to know what actually happened when they died.
I mean, we don't know until we die.
I know, that's why I said I would love to know. Okay.
It'd be nice to know.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think no one knows.
It was not a dumb comment. All right.
We've been trying to find out for all of human history.
All right, we're done here. All right, 14?
Sure, yeah.
This day shall be a day of remembrance.
Your notes have 14 through 20 all in one reading.
Yeah.
You're going to read the whole chunk?
Not if you don't want me to.
No, you're welcome to. Checking.
Oh, okay. This day shall be a day of remembrance for you. You shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord. Throughout your generations, you shall observe it as a perpetual ordinance. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove leaven from your houses. For whosoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day shall be cut off from Israel. On the first day you shall hold a solemn assembly, and on the 7th day a solemn assembly. No work shall be done on those days, only what everyone must eat, that alone may be prepared by you. You shall observe the festival of unleavened bread. For on this day I brought your company out of the land of Egypt. You shall observe this day throughout your generations as a perpetual ordinance. Did I just read that? Did I read that? Oh, look, see, it's 14 right there.
Yeah.
Okay. In the first month, from the evening of the 14th day until the evening of the 21st day, you shall eat unleavened bread. For 7 days, no leaven shall be found in your houses. For whoever eats what is leavened shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether an alien or a native of the land. You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your settlements you shall eat unleavened bread.
Absolutely no leaven.
What the? I get it. No leavens. Leave those things out.
He hates leaven. The dude hates leaven.
This is beginning to feel like what I imagine Leviticus is going to be like.
It is. Trust me, Leviticus is way worse. But it is weird that God seems so uptight about the leaven, because, like, I get the point of the festival. Past festivals commemorate the Passover, right? Which I get might be a little bit of a celebration, but a little bit solemn.
Mm.
But, like, is it really that critical that there's no leaven anywhere?
No leaven. That's what's that?
Because, like, listen, if somebody accidentally gets a little bit of leaven in their bread,
Right.
who really cares?
Well, God
I mean, he
cares.
does, but why? It's a weird thing to be a stickler over.
So leaven, that's just the yeast.
Yeah.
That makes bread rise.
Yep.
It's just too tasty, or what?
Actually, it does add a good taste to the bread. Um,
Well, yeah, it's not so dry, right?
no, I mean it could still be dry, but the leaven adds a flavor. Have you ever had sourdough before?
Yeah.
Well, if you have bread without leaven and bread with leaven, the leavened bread makes it taste somewhere between unleavened and sourdough. So it gives a little bit of flavor, but it's not noticeable until you have bread without leaven. Once you've had bread without leaven, then you notice, oh yeah, the leaven did add some flavor.
Okay.
But like I said, it's if you've never had unleavened bread, it's hard to notice the
See, it's a
difference.
yeast. On the first day, get rid of all yeast from your house.
All of it. Like, you think he could have just said, "Hey, listen, don't eat any leavened bread during the festival."
Or
Why go over the board and say, "Get rid of all of it from your house"?
yeah, or you're cut off forever.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because the commandment is not just that you can't eat the leavened bread, not that you just can't even have it in your house, but if you don't do the thing, you're cut off from the people.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. Such a stiff punishment for such a small infraction. God hates yeast.
Yeah.
Weird to me.
Right? I like a nice big yeasty bread, you know?
I agree. Or a big yeasty beer.
Yeah,
Some
no.
of those fermentation esters.
Is that the same stuff you put in bread? Is really?
That's what makes it rise.
Beer? Oh.
The beer and the bread.
Is it the same?
That's what creates the carbonation in the beer, and also creates the little bubbles or the pockets in the bread.
Oh.
That's why it rises, because it fills with tiny little pockets of gases. That's the byproduct of the yeast feeding on the sugars,
You're just eating just air.
which actually brings up a good point. If you make bread without yeast, depending on what type of bread you're making, you can make it taste a little bit sweeter, because the yeast isn't eating the sugars, not consuming the sugars.
Oh.
That's what it's feeding.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So if you want to make a really sweet bread, don't do a bunch of yeast.
I love sweetbreads.
I know, they're so good.
He doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. You get it. He doesn't get it.
No, what's sweet bread?
Oh.
That's something I don't know about.
Yeah.
Am I like too old, not a touch?
Yeah.
I'm not hanging around
Just look it up.
the young cool kids.
Just look it up.
Is it going to be like not safe for work? Am I going to like a computer taken from me?
I think it's safe for work.
Okay, I'll look up sweet.
All right.
I feel like I shouldn't, but
No. It's great.
people watching this probably already know what it is.
Yeah.
Shouting at the screen up sweet bread. Anyways, let's read on.
All right. Yeah, I'm doing it.
Oh, you're looking up sweetbread?
Yeah.
No, I'm looking up sweetbread.
Yeah.
It's sweetbread are the thymus and pancreas of a calf
Yeah.
or lamb or a kid. Oh, so it's like meatloaf?
I guess, but with really gross
That
parts
sounds
of meat.
terrible. Ugh. It's okay. It's a culinary name for the thymus, also called the throat or the gullet or the neck sweetbread. Ooh, ooh, oh no. This sounds terrible.
So you still like sweetbreads?
I'm gonna pass that type of a.
Yeah. All right.
Who invented that nonsense? That's like mincemeat pie.
Gross. All right. You ready to keep going with this thing? Then Moses called all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Go, select lambs for your families and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and touch the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood in the basin. None of you shall go outside the door of your house until morning." For the Lord will pass through to strike down the Egyptians. When he sees the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts, the Lord will pass over that door and will not allow the destroyer to enter your houses to strike you down. The destroyer, you say?
That's a hell of a name.
Right? That's, yo.
Angel of destruction.
Is this just another name for God, or God is working with another being? God and an angel, perhaps? Why both, though?
It seems to me like it's another one of those divine emissary situations where God is using an angel to do his bidding. You know what I mean? This particular angel just happens to be called the Destroyer.
Just happens to be called it from birth.
I mean, it's just a great name.
His mother's like, let's call him the Destroyer. Call him Little Destroyee.
But it's probably more like a title, just like Ha-Satan was just a title for one of the angels. That was a role that the angel played as the accuser. Whereas this is a role that this angel plays as destroyer. But we've got lots of different roles that angels could play. I think it wasn't until later in history that we started to characterize, the angel known as the accuser as like this divine enemy of God.
Is this in Job? You're talking about the accuser?
Well, yeah, he does show up in Job.
Okay. We just assumed it was Satan?
Well, it says Satan.
Oh, well then.
That's what Satan means.
Accuser?
Kind of. It means the accuser or the opposer. So like in Numbers 22, when Balaam's riding on a donkey and the angel of the Lord appears in front of the donkey and startles the donkey, the donkey calls the angel of the Lord a Satan, a Satan, an accuser, an opposer, because it's opposing the donkey. So it's a title of somebody that's doing something.
Okay.
And then it later got personified as like this guy with horns. And
so is this God saying to an angel, hey, here's what you got to do? Or is it God as the angel doing it?
Well, see, that's the thing is when we talk about divine emissaries, we typically is somebody that God has given all authority to do God's bidding and can even act in the capacity of God as though God was. So we see this in ancient writings as well. Divine, or not divine, but kingly emissaries are speaking. Sometimes they'll speak for the king, and they can answer for the king with the same weight and authority as the king.
You better trust them.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we're just thinking about angels as mindless drones, but they're not, right? I mean, they get to decide stuff too, right?
Yeah, they
Which
rebelled.
Makes no sense whatsoever. But the point is, I mean, God better be able to trust this guy, huh? Or else he might just kill all the firstborns.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. What if the angel of the Lord that's doing the destroying decided to not do what God told him?
Right? Maybe he felt bad. You know?
Maybe he had a little bit of pity. Actually, I don't think the angel of the Lord has any pity because he shows up in a bunch of other passages just slaughtering people. 2 Samuel chapter 24, he slaughters 70,000 Israelites as punishment for David taking a.
We'll have to get into that later.
That's a tough one.
No idea what you're talking about. All right, whatever.
I know, yeah.
But we're saying that's not God then.
Well, it's someone that's doing God's bidding.
Yes, I get that, but he can say no.
Yeah, theoretically, the angel of the Lord, I would imagine, has the capacity to have a different will.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we see anywhere in Scripture where the angel of the Lord did anything contrary to what God was doing.
Is there anywhere in the Bible where it does talk about the fallen angels, saint, and all that stuff, as if that were real?
It doesn't really show up until the Book of Revelation, when it talks about a third of the angels falling away. But a lot of people think that that's not about the Old Testament. That's about the end times. So in the Old Testament, is there a narrative about like the fallen angels?
Yeah.
Not really. We've discussed before during Genesis, the Nephilim and the angels that came down and mated with humankind.
Yeah.
That's the closest you'll get to the fallen angels narrative, but it's not clear that Satan was one of them. It just seems to be clear from the text that some angels that weren't named, we don't know how many of them, decided that they were going to boink human women, and it was a little bit problematic.
But it doesn't say anywhere that God sent them to hell or whatever, right? You know what I mean?
Not until you get to the Book of Enoch. Book of Enoch in the New Testament says that they've been imprisoned in chains.
The Nephilim, or
the angels that fell. And Matthew mentions it too. Matthew mentions, I think in chapter 11 or 12, or actually Matthew 25, that the hellfire was made for Satan and angels. And then in Jude and in 2 Peter, it mentions that the angels prior that fell are currently bound up in chains, waiting for judgment. Hell. So that's kind of how it gets handled in the Bible. But this is the New Testament's take on the Old Testament. In order to have that understanding, is borrowing a lot from the Enoch tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just read the Old Testament, it's hard to get that out of it.
Which is not canon.
Well, I mean, it is to the Ethiopians and to some of the early Christians. Just like the apocryphal texts. The apocryphal texts are part of the canon. It wasn't until the Protestants came around that changed. So for the first 14 to 1500 years of the church, it was canon. Wild that people can just remove it.
Oh.
But the Apocrypha does include references to the fallen angel.
All right. We'll have to read that at some point.
Yeah, there's a lot of New Testament theology that actually comes from the Apocrypha that we don't realize.
We should read them. 30 years down the line.
We'll get there for 80.
Yep.
Shame that work is getting in the way of our Bible study.
Right?
Hey, Denise.
I waved. Is that a friend of yours? All right. Sweet. All right. I'll continue.
Sure. We're doing 21 to 23?
No.
24 to 27?
Yeah.
All right. Let's have it.
You shall observe this as a perpetual ordinance for you and your children. When you come to the land that the Lord will give you as he has promised, you shall keep this observance. And when your children ask you, what does this observance mean to you? You shall say, it is the Passover sacrifice to the Lord. For he passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt when he struck down the Egyptians, but spared our houses. And the people bowed down and
Yeah, so that's kind of redundant. We already.
So I guess by this point, the Jews are pretty much fully on board with this.
I mean, you would think so. What other choice do they have? Right?
I mean, I guess they've been spared from a lot of other bad stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so they have to know God is real at this point, right?
They would have to after the plagues and the hail and
But
everything.
before this, we weren't really told how they were feeling about this. You know what I mean? You kind of wonder if they're all on board. You know, they're like, yeah. Let's kill the firstborn.
That's a good point. I mean, when God was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and then we're killing all the firstborn," how many of the
Wait,
Israelites
what?
were like,
Wait, what?
Is that the thing? Do we need to do that? Is that a necessary component to this? Because like we don't personify people in the ancient world very well, but like if we try to put ourselves back then, some of us would have empathy. Some of us would look at the situation and be like, I don't know if that's the thing. That seems awfully harsh. No leaven ever. The whole week.
Right.
And we're gonna kill all the babies too. It kind of strains credulity. That humanity would just go along with it.
I mean, obviously there have been some very bad things that have happened, and humanity has gone along with it.
That's a good point.
And I guess we shouldn't assume things were different back in the day, especially if there's a God saying, "Hey,
I mean, any number of atrocities can and have been. Right. He's a good scapegoat.
Escape lamb. That's right. He's a escape lamb.
All right, let's read the next section. It's starting to get.
Okay. The Israelites went and did just as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. So they did. And that was my comment for it. So they did.
Oh, your comment is what the book said.
So they did. Yeah. Very,
very conclusive.
Usually there's a lot of other stuff, but they're just like, they did it. Whatever.
They did the thing. Let's get on to the fun stuff now. Like they started to run out of tape, and the movie's gonna be way too long. Charleston Heston's never gonna get to the Red Sea if we don't cut this thing down.
29 to 32. The 10th plague, death of the firstborn. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne, the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. Pharaoh arose in the night, he and all his officials and all the Egyptians, and there was a loud cry in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. Then he summoned Moses and Aaron in the night and said, Rise, go away from my people, both you and the Israelites. Go, serve the Lord as you said. Take your flocks and your herds as you said, and be gone. And ask a blessing for me too. Is we good now, right?
Right. That's an interesting way to leave. But here's the thing, okay? Says that there was not a house without somebody dead?
Yeah.
Are we to assume there were no households with just women?
Right. I mean,
or women and somebody who wasn't a firstborn male?
Does it say firstborn males? So women get to live regardless?
I thought they did. Actually, now that I think about it, let me make sure I read that correctly. But I thought it was just the firstborn males, but I could be wrong. Now I have to.
No, it probably was. I mean, they'd probably not stand for killing women, right?
Yeah, well, we'll see. Because remember, this was payback kind of for the firstborn sons of Israel being executed by the Pharaoh, being thrown into the river.
Oh. Okay, that was important. You should have said that a long time ago.
Oh, sorry.
You just assumed I knew that.
Well, because it says here, struck down the firstborn in the land of Egypt. But back in verse 10.
Yeah, it's got to say something else.
Yeah, in verse 10, I thought it had something to say about or chapter 10, rather. The Lord said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of all of his officials, in order that I might show these signs right among them, so that you may tell your children, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Okay. Terrible stuff. Terrible, awful. Stretch out your hand overnight. Okay, yeah, the locust. Yeah, we know about the locust. Yeah, we know about the darkness.
I think it's the next chapter.
Yeah. Oh, because we're in chapter 12. I apologize. I went back one, two. The warning of the final plague. There we go. I will bring one more plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt after he will let you go. Indeed, when he lets you go, he will drive you away.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Every
About midnight.
firstborn.
Yeah.
Every firstborn.
Yeah. It doesn't say every firstborn male. My brain read firstborn male into it, but it doesn't actually say that.
That's weird. It's just assumed, right?
Right? It's just assumed because that's what the Egyptians did to Hebrews, but that's not what it actually says. Which, if that's the case, then the poor women got executed as well.
Right.
Oh, that's terrible.
It was okay when the guys were getting killed. I get it.
Right. Interesting. Now it might be that the firstborn, in the Hebrew language, it might be in like a male construction as opposed to a female construction. So there might be a translation out there that translated it.
Okay, go find out.
As firstborn males, but I'm not aware of that actually, whether or not that's the case.
Is there a way to find out?
Yeah, we can search like Bible Hub, right? So if we go to Exodus 12:29 and just Google that, Bible Hub will pull open a list of all the different translations, and we can see if it says firstborn male or just firstborn. And look, it does. In the Berean Standard Bible, it says, "Now at midnight the Lord struck down every firstborn male." Let's see whatever does the same thing in the CSB, the Christian Standard Bible. It says firstborn male. In the Holman Christian Standard, it says firstborn male. See what else says. God's Word translation says firstborn male. The Majority Standard Bible says firstborn male. So there actually are some Bibles that did firstborn male.
Okay.
And I assume it's because the word for firstborn was just built in a construction that was masculine as opposed to feminine, and they made some assumptions there. Possible that there might be some textual variation.
In the Message, it says firstborn child.
Well, yeah.
So
That's even. Well,
actually, it is because we know it wasn't just children, right?
Right. It couldn't have been just children. It didn't.
Yeah,
say
well,
anything
yeah,
about
since
the
somebody
children.
was on the throne, unless he was just a little baby on a throne.
Every time I read that passage, though, I think of somebody on the toilet, this throne.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, imagine going out like Elvis,
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah,
that'd be terrible.
Not the best way to die.
Let me see. I'm curious if Eugene Carpenter says anything about this particular
Eugene Peterson.
Eugene Carpenter, guy who wrote this commentary. He translates it as the firstborn, not the firstborn males.
Okay, well.
So I think that's pretty conclusive. It says the parallels between this report of the execution, blah blah blah, and the earlier. Yep. Mm-hmm. It says substitution of one term or idiom for a synonymous term. Slave. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Yahweh. Yep. Doesn't say anything about whether or not they're male or female.
Okay.
So that's curious. Now I'm really. We'll do some. I'll do some searching on this.
Okay.
Between this week and next week, and see if I can come up with an explanation. I'm curious what the Greek Septuagint said. Let's pull that up real quick. Exodus 12:29 and the Greek Septuagint. It says here, so at midnight the Lord struck down every firstborn in the land. Okay, so probably just means every firstborn, I'm curious to know the reasoning why some translation firstborn males.
Right. If they just assumed.
But Denise has a good point. Denise says it still wouldn't be every single household, and I agree, because let's imagine that it's the firstborn males and the firstborn females, right? If that's the case, then there still could be households where it's just like a man and his wife, and neither one of them are the firstborn,
Right.
right? So it's got to be hyperbole.
Seems like there's a lot of that in the Bible.
There's a lot of hyperbole. There really is. I think this is probably one. All right, let's keep reading.
All right. 35 to something. Wait, where are we at? We're not at 35.
Yeah, we are.
Are we?
Yep.
They
all got killed.
No, I think we're at 29.
I think we just read 29 to 35. It ended with "Ask a blessing for me too."
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that. Good times.
Okay, buddy.
No. All right. The Exodus from Ramesses to Succoth.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it? Ramesses?
A lot of people just say Ramses.
Well, they're wrong.
But I'm not sure what
there's more than one there.
Well, there's multiple ways to spell it too.
This is a Ramesses.
I think there's multiple ways. I mean, I've never looked up the exact pronunciation of it, and I don't think it matters.
You know what? We might be able to get a whole nother chapter in.
That's not gonna.
Like maybe.
It's already 8:15, and we're only halfway through.
We're more than halfway, and as you can see, I don't have any notes.
It's just barely halfway.
Which means nothing happened.
That means we got a lot to talk about.
Do you?
Yeah.
All right. All right. The Egyptians urged the people to hasten their departure from the land, for they said, "We shall all be dead." The Egyptians are all like, "Listen, you got to go. I don't care if your bread isn't leavened yet. Isn't unleavened yet. Wait. It's got to be unleavened, right? Like, I don't care if your bread isn't unleavened yet."
Well, that's why they couldn't have any leaving, because it was leaving.
There's probably a funny joke here. No, I meant a funny one. No offense. All right.
That wasn't funny?
I mean, it's
fine. You're going to remember later.
Okay, you'll just have to leave the leaven here and leave your bread later on your own time. Leaving your... I'm going to start...
Leaving?
I'm going to start over again.
Try again. Good thing it's not live.
Right. So the Egyptians are all like, "Listen, you got to go. I don't care if your bread isn't unleavened yet. You'll just have to leave the leaven here and leave your bread later on your own. Leave your bread. Leave. We just cut out the last 5 minutes.
Sure, and we will absolutely never edit this.
Oh, I'm going to...
It's in here for all of history now.
I'll edit this one out.
Uh-huh.
All right.
All right, so absolutely no leaving.
None. So the people took their dough before it was leavened.
Obviously.
With their kneading bowls wrapped up in their...
Before it was leavened? Why would they say that?
Before it was leavened.
It was never leavened. They're not allowed to leaven it.
That's true.
That's not a good... That can't be the right way to word that. Ridiculous. Anyways, keep going.
All right, so the people took their dough before it was leavened with their kneading bowls wrapped up in their cloaks on their shoulders.
Okay.
Did they already eat their lamb?
You would think so. I mean, they were instructed to do so, but it didn't explicitly say that that's what they did.
So the dough means that the bread isn't ready for eating?
Right, it's not baked.
Oh, so they got to do that later?
Yeah. But you gotta get out in a hurry.
Yeah, it's just, why even bother making the bread? Now you got to carry this dough with you, right? Or I don't know. It just seems weird.
You can't make dough in the desert. You need water for that.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are probably some wells there. All right.
Maybe. There's some wells that once you get to Beersheba,
okay.
The land of the 7 wells.
Right, yeah. Is that where they're close to?
They're a couple days journey.
Okay.
Get there in a couple days. But, want to eat during those couple days.
Yeah.
Take some unleavened bread while you're leaving.
Right. Okay. The Israelites had acted according to the word of Moses. They had asked the Egyptians for jewelry, of silver and gold and for clothing, and the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they let them have what they asked. And so they plundered the Egyptians. That's what really happened.
I always love it when they translated it plundered. That's such a. It always feels like it was a pirate ship. Because where else would you use the word plundered?
You know what? That feels like what they actually did, right?
Kind of.
I mean, because, we're acting like, hey, can we have some stuff? And the Egyptians are like, sure, buddy. When in reality, it was like, hey, we just killed all your firstborns. Hate to see your secondborns killed.
That's a good point. Yeah, because it's not like, okay, it's not like they went in and like physically robbed them like pirates.
Mm-hmm.
But like from the viewpoint of the Egyptians, hell, it probably felt that way.
Yeah.
God just sent 10 plagues. They killed a bunch of the kids and, well, the adults too. What other choice do they have?
Right.
Take it.
We'll
take
do
all the gold. Just take it.
anything you ask.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave us alone, you and your unleavened bread.
Yeah, but give us your leaven.
Yeah.
Leaven.
That's a good point. Did they leave the leaven in Egypt for the people to have leavened bread?
That would have been nice of them, at least. You don't want to just throw it away, right?
Because then it would be a reminder for both of them, was that we don't have any leaven because we're leaving, and you've got all of our leaven, so you can remember how we were leaving.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm saying.
I have a good feeling that this play on words doesn't work the same in the original language.
No way.
Wouldn't that be so funny if it did, though?
That'd be amazing. That would explain why it says leaving so many times.
Because they think they're funny.
Because they're making some jokes.
Let's go look it up right now.
Sure, yeah, okay.
I mean, we can do that, right?
Well, to leave, it's typically like yatsa or halak or yarad.
Maybe it's a synonym. They had synonyms, right?
They're not synonyms, but let me find the word that they use for leaving. I don't know the word for leaving.
Or maybe it's like really closely spelled or something.
Maybe, yeah.
There's stuff like that in the Bible, silly stuff, right?
So the word for leaven appears to be chametz. Let me see if there's another word they get in the chapter, or if it's just the one word. Let's see if leavened and unleavened. Oh yeah. So the word for unleavened would be matzah or matzot, which makes sense. And then the word for leaven would be hamatz. So those are probably the two words that we're working with in this chapter. Then let me see what word did they use for leave the land. Is that in 29 where it said they left? Midnight, the Lord struck down all the first. Yep. Rise up. Typically like boomers. Yeah, it was kum. Doesn't rhyme. Word for leaving at all. Go away. Might be a variation. Block. Oh, yatsa, to send out. Now yatsa does rhyme a little bit with matzah.
It does. It's a perfect rhyme.
Yeah, but
we did it. We figured it out.
Well, that's the thing, is it depends on the verbiage used, because there's also in the same chapter there's the plural form, matzot, which doesn't rhyme.
Okay.
But I'll read the whole chapter in Hebrew tonight just for you.
Yeah, please do that.
And see if there's some fun rhymes, some playing on words here.
Yeah. Because it is kind of a weird.
Because it would explain all of the, God absolutely hating.
Right. Yeah.
The yeast.
Mm-hmm.
Denise says coercion is Yahweh's way, and I agree. Yahweh knows how to do anything. He knows how to coerce people
Mm-hmm.
and violate their free will.
Mm-hmm.
And then we blame everything on free will. So,
Uh-huh.
anyways, let's carry on. Let's keep reading.
All right. Here I go.
Ready.
Uh, the Israelites journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides the little ones. Funny? Because it was a lot.
I'm just saying, 600,000, such an absurd number. Can you imagine 2.5 million people just being like all at once?
Uh,
Such a lot. Have you been to like a football game or a baseball game?
I mean, in my life, yes.
Okay, so I think the average stadium maybe holds 40,000 people.
Oh, okay.
So imagine 40,000 people. How many? Let me calculator out. Because it's hard to picture that many.
I was thinking that rhyming thing probably doesn't work since there's only one consonant in common. There would need to be at least two for it to be a wordplay. So I don't know. Something to think about, all right?
So this would be the. Oh, you're reading the comment from Chet. I don't think it. Oh, Chet would know. Yeah, Chet says I don't think it works. There's only one consonant in common. There would need to be for it to
That's
be
what
a
I just
wordplay.
said.
Well, I think also, Chet, we were considering the possibility that it might be a rhyme as well, not just a play on words. But
Are these all your little friends?
but they're not little. Yes, they're my friends. I don't friends. But to the point, 2.5 million Jewish people. Yeah, you've offended them. 2.5 million Jewish people leaving would be the equivalent of 62 football stadiums worth of people. So if you can imagine
That's
62 football
quite a
stadiums
traffic jam, huh?
of people, yeah, trying to exit Egypt, it's just kind of an improbable thing to imagine.
Yeah,
No, that's a lot of unleavened bread.
right.
You think they're stepping over dead bodies on the way out?
I don't think there are that many dead bodies, are there?
Oh, God just killed a ton of people.
How many?
I don't know. I mean, if the population of Egypt is 2 million.
You have groupies. That's cute.
Yeah, I think groupies is.
Yeah, that's cute.
So, I don't know. I'm just saying the whole scene is absolute havoc
Yeah.
when you try to piece it together.
Now, this happened historically, yes, no?
I mean, if you think that the Hyksos expulsion is where the narrative stemmed from,
Yeah.
but in the Hyksos expulsion, there was like a battle between the Egyptians and the Hyksos, and then they were driven from the land,
Oh, okay.
which is a little bit different than God sending plagues, and
Yeah.
then the Egyptians,
Are you just saying that this couldn't have happened then? Because you said 2.5 million people. That's that's a lot to leave all at once.
Well, no, I'm saying that even if there's a historical kernel here, obviously it wasn't 2.5 million. Might have been,
you don't think?
might have been like 100,000. I don't know.
Didn't we do the math before? And 2.5 million actually was reasonable. Like it made sense.
That's what I'm saying. Based on the number from 600,000 men,
Yeah.
then the entire population would have been.
Oh, but you're thinking that was an exaggeration right there.
All of it is an exaggeration. There wasn't 600,000 men that left.
Oh, okay.
If there was 600,000 men that left, that means there'd be about 2.5 million.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you think that's not likely?
Well, the whole population of Egypt wasn't even that much.
Oh, wasn't it?
Historically, yeah.
I thought you said that they were about 2 million.
Yeah, the whole population of Egypt would have been between 1 and 2 million people, which means the entire population of Egypt just left.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's improbable that this large number of people left all.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, there could have been a lot of them. Who knows?
But who knows, right?
No one really knows. Maybe we'll uncover some archaeological data at some point that allows us to know what the number of Hyksos people were.
There's an area between Egypt and the Promised Land, right?
Kind of, yeah.
And we know the journey, right? Have we ever just like dug all of it up and seen if there's stuff down there?
Yeah, we've been digging there for a long time, over 100 years.
Nothing?
There are settlements, but they're not Israelite settlements.
Yeah. Not digging in the right place. All right.
That's what it is. They just need to keep digging.
That's what I said. All right.
All right, let's keep.
A mixed crowd also went up with them, and livestock in great numbers, both flocks and herds. They baked unleavened cakes of the dough that they had brought out of Egypt. It was not it was not leavened.
It's definitely not leavened.
Because they were
Why do they need to repeat it? We get it. It's unleavened bread. Ridiculous.
It was not leavened because they were driven out of Egypt and could not wait, nor had they prepared any provisions for themselves. It was not leavened because they were driven out of Egypt. They just didn't have time.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It was.
They couldn't wait.
It was very quick.
Yeah.
Although it makes you wonder, like, if God is in control of everything, God is the one pulling the string. Could not have God just given them enough warning to say, "Hey, bake this bread,
Right.
so that it doesn't go bad or something, right?
Yeah.
And then store it. It'll last a long time. It's unleavened bread, and then get the heck out of here."
Right.
Maybe the reason why they didn't have them bake the bread or to eat the lamb just yet was because they didn't want to tip off the.
I mean, you said they still made a ton of fires when they were cooking it, right?
Probably. Well, the instructions were to roast the lambs,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't say that they actually did it.
Oh,
It just said that these were the instructions.
Okay.
But it said at the beginning of the chapter how to cook the lambs, but at no point did it actually say that they did it.
I guess I just assumed.
Right. So it says here, they must have at least killed them because they had the blood.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me go over
That's
it.
right.
It says, "Yeah, you shall observe the festival of unleavened bread on this very day. I brought companies out of Egypt first month for 7 days. No, yeah, we know that." Then Moses called the elder to take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and touch the lintel doorpost with the blood in the basin. Okay, yeah, so it seems like the lambs must have been slaughtered. As Moses said to all the elders of Israel, to them, "Go and select the lambs for your families, slaughter the Passover lamb." So obviously the Passover lambs and goats have already been slaughtered, but for some reason they couldn't find time to bake the damn bread.
Right.
So there's so many weird things happening with the timeline here.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they bake the bread?
I don't know. It's crazy.
It seems like it would carry much better.
Yeah.
It'd be lighter.
Yeah.
You
Oh, yeah, because you'd be full of air. Yeah, I was listening to you.
And the water would be baked off. Water evaporates.
Oh, yeah, that too. Well, you're so smart. You should have been a baker.
I don't know if that. I mean, love some baked goods.
Okay.
All right, let's read on. We might even finish the chapter before 9:00.
Oh, I can read more slowly. I don't mind.
Well, let's see what happens.
All right.
Are we on 40?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. The time that the Israelites had lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of 400. Okay.
I'm going to read it if you don't read.
Fine. The time that the Israelites had lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of 430 years, on that very day, all the companies of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. That was for the Lord a night of vigil to bring them out. uh, all right. It's funny. It's funny.
I must have missed.
What is a comment right there?
Yeah, read the book.
I know, but it's funny.
We can read the
I
comment.
know,
after
I'm
you
just
read
saying
the
it's
book.
funny.
I'm going to read the book if you don't.
All right. That was for the Lord a night of vigil to bring them out of the land of Egypt. That same night is a vigil to be kept for the Lord by all the Israelites throughout their generations.
All of the generations.
What did I say?
That's what you said.
Oh, you're just emphasizing it.
God wants to make sure you do this forever.
Oh, yeah. Wait, do they still do that?
Passover today.
Do they kill lambs?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, some of them.
Oh, okay.
I would. If I was Jewish, I'd be having lamb chops. Oh, you best believe it.
Yeah. So, fine. You don't need an
I'd
excuse.
even have like the sock puppet with the eyeballs on it,
Yeah.
just for the kids.
Yeah.
Good time.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm all down for celebrating the Passover. In fact, maybe this year I'll go to a Passover Seder. Have you been to one?
Passover was in October this year. Yes, it was.
It's always close to Easter.
No. It said October 4th or something.
That was Rosh Hashanah.
Okay.
That's the modern time period for the New Year.
Right, and that was when the Passover was.
No, it used to be the same thing. Not anymore.
Okay. Well, then I'm glad I asked, because otherwise somebody's going to ask me, and I'm going to act like an idiot when I tell them it's in October.
Yeah, so Rosh Hashanah is not as you would think at when the Passover is the first month of the year. It got migrated. Yeah, Denise knows.
Yeah, that's great.
There's a history as to how that came to be the case, but I don't recall it. Like I said, I'll have to look that up later.
Okay. We'll have so much to talk about next week, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like. I mean, the next couple of chapters are a lot of fun. We got lots to talk about. Period.
Well,
We got a couple things to follow up on.
Yeah.
Just remember that God hates.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like it.
I mean, they weren't having any beer
Good thing I'm
or
not Jewish.
wine that was
Aw.
leavened during the Passover.
What a nice comment that I'm not allowed to read. Okay.
All right, stay focused.
All right. Directions for the Passover
Right.
again. Didn't we already do this?
Yeah, I think we already read this.
No. I mean, no, we haven't. But I thought we already read the directions for the Passover.
We did. We're going to read them again. God makes sure that you don't forget to not have any leaven.
Okay.
Just whatever you do, make sure there's no yeast in your house.
All right.
He hates yeast.
Yeah. All right. The
Do
Lord.
you think he's got an allergy?
He might.
What
He might.
if the angel of the Lord has a yeast allergy?
Like a gluten allergy?
What if this was just protection? God, the angel of the Lord knows he's going to come down into your people, and like whatever you do, he's going to break out if you have yeast anywhere. Get it out of your house.
Like some angelic vomit.
And that's why he was so pissed off at the Egyptians, because God set him up. He didn't tell them. God didn't tell the angel of destruction what was happening. He went down there. He went into the Egyptian houses because they didn't have the blood. He got the yeast infection. He was so pissed off, he killed all the Egyptians.
You think God was just playing a prank on him?
I don't know.
They say God has a sense of humor.
He's got to.
The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "This is the ordinance for the Passover. No foreigner shall eat of it, but any slave who has been purchased may eat of it after he has been circumcised. No bound or hired servant may." They have bound servants?
Yeah, so this is another one of those clear passages. We've talked about it earlier when we discussed the slaves that Abraham was given. This is another very clear passage that makes it known that they either had actual slaves, which is why they weren't slaves themselves.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And that God seems to be unfazed by the fact that they have slaves.
Yeah, you can't have slaves if you're a slave. How would that even work?
They clearly weren't real slaves. They were just forced labor.
Yeah, but they were still doing pretty good for themselves if they could afford slaves, right?
You know, it depends. It's a relative. You know, people in Egypt, even people that aren't well off today. I mean, not in ancient times. Even people that aren't well off in Egypt and Lebanon and Jordan, those countries, a lot of them have house servants. Even common folk do come in and do cleaning and yard work and whatnot. Um, it's very common. That's just part of the culture back then. But the people who did that type of work were it wasn't that we had lots of money. Is that they were so impoverished that they would be willing to do all kinds of stuff for next to nothing.
Oh,
They didn't have a minimum wage, like, you know what I mean?
that feels like a current problem we have in America. I don't want to mention it, but you know what I mean?
But the difference here is you're allowed to own them as property.
Yeah.
Slaves are property. Underpaid employees are.
Yeah, not quite as bad.
Yeah.
Huh.
Right. Anyways, let's keep on going.
Yeah, because there's no way you ever get over the fact that there's, the Jews had slaves. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, God said in Leviticus 25 that you can have the slave.
You know what they're gonna say? Like other Christians, they're gonna say, "Yeah, but I mean, their lives were probably better than as slaves."
Than being free people living your own life.
Yes.
Not as somebody else's
I mean, I'd love to hear what their actual argument is. That has to be it, right?
That's about all they got.
There's no other argument.
That's all they got.
Yeah. Which is probably why they're still okay with slaves.
Some of them.
Yeah.
I've talked to some that are.
Yeah. Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people in MAGA that's totally okay with keeping slavery. Yeah. Yeah. Remember, the Southern Baptist Convention was literally created as a Christian movement to combat the slave freedom. Oh. They wanted to keep slavery and they wanted to keep racism in place in the Christian church. They thought that it was a biblically moral institution.
And it kind of is.
It is. I agree. Yes, slavery is biblically, morally justified.
That sucks.
That's a big problem.
Which is why nobody ever talks about it.
Yes. And even in this commentary by Eugene Carpenter, he bends over backwards to not say the obvious. If you go to Exodus 21 in this commentary, it's a good commentary, by the way. Great guy. Peace be upon him. He goes out of his way in Exodus chapter 21 to say that, well, God gave this law in Exodus 21 about owning slaves, even though it wasn't his ideal situation. He had to do it because he couldn't just tell them that they couldn't do it. He had to gradually move them out of it, which is the silliest hermeneutic to imply.
Isn't he God?
Yeah. Listen, when God says to do something, you can do it. When he says don't do it, it means you don't do it.
Right.
We have no indication whatsoever that God said you can do this thing for now.
Yeah, like one of the 10 Commandments, thou shalt commit adultery just once or twice?
Yeah, exactly. Did God need to wean them off of adultery?
Right, yeah.
Why is slavery the one thing that God decided to wean them off of?
Right, yeah.
It's the craziest.
Oh.
Or people will say, like, well, God knew that they weren't going to, if God said not to own slaves, God knew they wouldn't listen. Well, yeah, but they didn't listen to the other laws anyways.
Right.
They're still worshiping other gods and boning other people's wives.
And God can just smite a bunch of them.
Yeah, he smote Onan. They smote Onan's brother Er. I mean, he's not above smiting people. He smote all of the Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The slavery bit is wild. The justification for it.
Now, I know this is off topic, but so we don't have proof that the Jews existed, right? You said that
they quite literally exist right now.
Well, yeah, the Israelites, obviously, that's what I mean. The
ancient Israelites?
Yeah.
No, they existed. We have documentation of them.
Then do we have proof that they had slaves?
Oh, I mean, I don't see why we would assume they didn't have, because everybody did.
Oh, okay.
I mean, even in the Bible, they talk about them slaves. There's two narratives in the book of Kings and Samuel, one in Samuel, one in Kings,
Well, no. I know in the Bible it mentions it, but I'm just saying outside of the Bible, does it mention it?
Yeah, we've got Jewish slave contracts, marriage and slave contracts from the Elephantine period, and the post-exilic period.
Elephantine, huh? That's how some people describe me. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Not because you have a long nose.
No.
No, or floppy ears.
Kind of proud of that joke.
That was a good one. That was a
Thank you.
good one. Snorted.
I saw that.
That was good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
well. Right, yeah, let's keep reading. Sorry, I got distracted by the slave.
All right, we'll finish this up.
That's right.
It shall be eaten in one house. You shall not take any of the animal outside the house, and you shall not break any of its bones. What's that all about?
Well, see, there's some questions as to why you can't break the animal's bones.
You can what? Kill it and roast it and eat it. You can't break its bones. Is that just like a safety thing?
I don't think so. Let me see what Eugene Carpenter says about it. But I always interpreted it as saying that it can't be redeemed because on the animals that get redeemed as opposed to sacrificed, you would just break its neck and eliminate it, as opposed to actually create a sacrifice.
I'm sorry. What does redeemed mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, an animal that's redeemed means that it's not actually sacrificed, that it's used, not used, but it's repurposed for something else, or just discarded altogether. But it wasn't part of God's holy sacrifice.
Oh, okay.
Just like it was like buying something back, basically, in exchange from one thing to it. But they just use one word for it.
Okay, doesn't make sense to me. All right.
Let me. Sorry, we were looking at the broken bones in verse 46.
Yeah.
So Eugene Carpenter says, households should not divide up the Passover lamb, but one lamb shall be eaten in the house according to the earlier instructions. Solidarity of the sacrificial community is thereby enhanced. Everyone in Israel will be safe and ready to depart at the time. Likewise, the bones of the lamb or goat will not be broken at all, either when dividing it up or when left whole. The procedure for eating the lamb is most likely what is referred to here, rather than the offering of the animal or the celebration itself. New Testament refers to this regulation as the Passover. Blah 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 blah. It means nothing to us. So again, Eugene
Okay.
Carpenter let us down here by not providing us helpful
Okay.
information about something that a good scholar like Baruch Levine or Jacob Milgram definitely would have touched on. Maybe next week I'll bring out my better Exodus commentaries.
Okay. Okay.
And we'll see if they have anything to add to the cultic practices.
Okay.
Because certainly Jacob Milgram has written practice. So we don't fully know why the bones shouldn't be broken. Maybe because it was easier and quicker to discard the body this way.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or maybe it was symbolic. Maybe it has a symbolism to it.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
A lot of this seems to be symbolic. Yeah.
Or maybe it's a prophecy about Jesus.
All right. Anyhow.
Sure, it's not a prophecy.
I'm not sure, but
it's
I'll have to look into it.
It's certainly not a prophecy.
Who knows?
But this is the problem with that is the New Testament says it's a prophecy.
Well, then maybe it is.
In John chapter 19.
When we get to John, we'll discuss it. All right.
Right. But just reading the passage, obviously, no prophecy.
Okay.
I'm asking you, did you see a prophecy?
I mean, the problem with a prophecy is, it isn't a prophecy until, it comes true, right?
Well, I'm saying, how would you recognize a prophecy to be a prophecy?
Well, because John will talk about it later.
No. Like if I'm reading the Old Testament, right, and I come upon a passage, how do I know if that is a prophetic passage?
Well, obviously, if somebody says it's a prophecy, it is. But there are also prophecies that you don't realize right away.
How do you realize that it is?
Because after the fact, they get fulfilled.
Oh, so if I fulfill something that is Old Testament, it's prophecy?
If you're Jesus, are you Jesus?
Okay, so your starting point is that Jesus is the guidepost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of Christians approach it.
Yeah. That's because we're smart. All right, we're going to move on.
We love you anyways.
All right, the whole congregation of Israel shall do this.
Right.
If an alien who resides with you wants to celebrate the Passover to the Lord, all his males shall be circumcised. Then he may draw near to celebrate it. He shall be regarded as a native of the land, but no uncircumcised person shall eat of it. There shall be one law for the native born and for the alien who resides among you.
Want the lamb, you got to get the...
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if there's anything else to say there.
I mean, you literally cannot in the congregation of Israel without
Right.
mutilating the,
Yeah.
Aaron's magic rod.
Yeah, let's not get even more shadow banned.
Right, exactly.
All right.
I'm sure it's coming positive. We were doing good until we started talking about like rape in the Bible.
All right, don't do that anymore.
Right, yeah. Let's finish this thing out.
Yeah, all right.
That's what she said.
Maybe. All right. All the Israelites did just as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. That very day, the Lord brought the Israelites out of the land of Egypt, company by company. The end.
Hell of a day.
Yeah, they had a big day.
Especially since it was...
They had a big night. They'll probably sleep good in the morning. I don't know. I guess they would have to do a lot of walking, right? Because they're taking this opportunity to get out of there.
Well, I think maybe like the elderly and children might be on like the back of pack animals, perhaps. But maybe there were wagons.
Of course, it doesn't matter because they all have to go the same speed as the slowest person, right?
Go as slow as a weak link.
Something like that. I mean, they must not have been going that fast since the Egyptians were able to catch up with them, right? Just on horses or something, or chariots. I don't know what they used.
That's a good point. They couldn't have been traveling all that fast. Obviously, if hundreds of thousands,
yeah,
or even a million more, obviously going at a
right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, an army would catch up with you.
So why bother with all this charade of trying to leave? Well, it's obvious that the Egyptians are going to be able to catch up to them. So why try to, slink out all surreptitiously?
That's a good point. So why sneak out at night? Especially because God already knows what's going to happen. God already knows that the Pharaoh's going to go after them.
Yeah.
He already knows that he's going to split the Red Sea. What's the point in sneaking out?
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if some of the Jews were like, yeah, this is going to work. They'll never catch up to us. Right. And then they caught up to them.
Unless this was necessary in order to create distance between them and the Egyptians.
Oh, so that they could go across the Red Sea.
So you can split the sea and drown them all.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense, actually.
Not just good enough to execute all the firstborn. You have to drown, all the chariots.
The whole army.
The whole army, yeah.
All right, I have a question for you. So this Red Sea, right?
Not really the...
But... Fine, what is it? But we also know that's also the Red Sea. Well, it's got the same, reed can be translated as reeds or red. Because the reeds were red. No,
the sea in Hebrew is Yam Suf, which is of reeds.
Yeah.
If it was Red Sea, it'd be Yam Edom.
Well, I mean, you weren't there, but the point...
It wasn't the Red Sea, but yes, people have explored the Red Sea pretty extensively.
Yeah.
There-
Did they find any chariots? What did you say? Of course not. Well, chariots were made out of wood. Would the wood have disintegrated?
Yeah, so theoretically, what happens when like wooden structures go into these types of um, coral begins to grow on them,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually the wood disintegrates. But the coral is pretty sturdy, so the coral structure will sometimes be left behind.
Oh, that's neat.
So like you can even see wooden vessels sunk,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a coral formation in place of the old wooden structure that you.
Mm.
Um, that being said, there's nothing of that bottom of the red. And certainly, if they crossed the Sea of Reeds, we have no way of knowing what portion it was or whether or not the sea is shaped differently today. Maybe the part that they crossed isn't even underwater today anymore. It's kind of a mystery where and how they would have crossed or what body of water they would have crossed
Okay.
or what portion of it they would have crossed. But one thing is for sure, the many rumors um, on the internet that somebody has found chariots
Yeah,
at
I
the
saw
bottom of the
some. I
Red
saw some
Sea,
pictures of that.
all nonsense.
I mean, where did the pictures come from?
They came from, well, some of them are manufactured by the internet. But two pictures that were published by a guy named Ron Wyatt back in the 80s. Ron Wyatt was a fake archaeologist. He was actually a nurse, pretended to be an archaeologist. He took other people's money and went out to the Near East and pretended to discover things. And sometimes he would even forge findings. For example, when he went to the Red Sea, they didn't bring anything up. They didn't bring a single thing out of the Red Sea. They didn't produce any actual findings that would be conclusive. They took up pictures of one or two things. They just said, "Oh, look, this is such and such. Look at the videos; it's clearly just coral formation." But then they also have manufactured pictures of like a cast gold chariot wheel, which didn't exist, made any like that ever,
Yeah.
and it's clearly just a steering wheel from a wrecked ship, most likely that someone put there. And it's also true that Ron Wyatt was exposed by his own son because he was handing out coins that he claimed he found in the Red Sea to people as souvenirs. He was even selling some of them. Coins hadn't been used in Egypt for another 1,000 years. There's no way he found coins from ancient Egypt at the Red Sea crossing
Wow.
as proof that the Egyptians were there because they didn't have coins.
What did they have?
They had weights of metals.
Oh, they didn't have real coins yet?
Not till about 500 BC.
No.
The guy was just a big dumb goof.
You probably should have researched some of this stuff first, huh?
He wasn't smart.
Yeah. Smart enough.
He's the same guy that claimed to find Noah's Ark. He's the same guy that claimed to find the Ark of the Covenant and Jesus' blood. He also claimed that he found the mountain that Moses received the Ten Commandments on. He claimed that he found Sodom and Gomorrah. He claimed that he found Sarah, or not Sarah, but Lot's wife as the pillar of salt.
Yeah.
Like everything you've ever heard in the Old Testament, he claimed he discovered.
Is he still alive?
Long gone.
Yeah.
And funny enough, nothing he ever did was ever submitted to a single archaeological journal. It was him publishing his nonsense on his website, and people believe. Pay for it.
Yeah.
People love to have their religious beliefs confirmed.
Of course. Yeah.
My dad loved that kind of stuff, but even he was skeptical. You know? I remember one time I saw an article that said, "Hey, Dad, they found the Ark of the Covenant." And Dad's like, "No, they didn't. I already looked into that. I'd love for him to find it. Nothing that guy ever found is real." And then I had to look deeper. And
I don't know why you'd want to find the Ark of the Covenant, though.
Wouldn't you?
Well, I think you'd die if you touch it.
Haven't you seen?
Yeah, it didn't work out well for them, did it?
Melt all the German people's faces off. And
Yeah.
a hell of a time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know the army that has it always wins, right?
Well, I mean,
that's why they wanted it.
Well, in the book of Samuel, when the Ark of the Covenant stolen by the opposing army, bad things happened to the people. Then they ended up putting it into a cart and sending it off. Back to Israel. Like, get it out of here. We don't want this curse with us.
Well, so maybe it's not the Ark, it's God.
Yeah, God's doing it.
Oh, okay. So that archaeologist Mr. Jones was incorrect then.
That Indiana Jones was biblically accurate.
Okay. Yeah.
A funny thing, the Hebrew word for ark is Aaron, brother of the brother of Moses, who also happened to be the first priest, the one who tended to the ark.
Yeah.
The guy that tended to the ark had a name that literally meant ark.
Oh, so you're thinking it wasn't his real name?
I don't know.
What did Moses mean?
Moshe, I think it means to be drawn out of the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, so these are probably like not their real names then.
Yeah, I probably would.
These are like ways to remember them, maybe. Or
I would think the same thing with Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph, numerically, gather.
And Abraham, his name meant father, right?
They're mythological names.
Be funny to name your kid father because you're like, I bet he'll be a father one day.
Well, Abram is like father of many.
Yeah, but Abram, yeah.
Abraham really means.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the end of the chapter.
No, Abram means father, and Abraham means father of many. Just so you know.
No, Av means.
Well, you weren't there. All right, let's just wrap it up here.
All right, fantastic. Okay, I think that's every verse in chapter 51. Next week we're going to be doing chapter 12. Next week we're in chapter 13. We're going to be talking more about the festival of unleavened bread because we didn't hear enough about the yeast.
Okay.
And then we're going to do the consecration / maybe sacrifice of the firstborn.
Hey, that's a short one.
Yep.
We'll be able to do 14.
And then we get the pillar of cloud and fire.
Nice.
Yeah, we could probably do 2 chapters next.
Nice. All right. No, we will.
I'll pray about it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it should be a lot of fun. And then chapter 14, we've got the Red Sea crossing.
I did say it was the Red Sea.
It's not.
It says it is.
It's not.
Well, it says it is.
I know it did because people still think it's.
Let me get this straight.
This was done by editors, not by translators.
You're right, and the Bible is wrong.
It's not in the Bible.
It says it right there.
The heading is literally added by the people who published it.
Well,
by people who didn't do any translating work.
Who knows? All right.
The translators of the text don't add headings.
Well, I don't know. I'll have to look that up.
Well, I mean, I'll read you from the actual Hebrew commentary next week while we're doing it. Why it's not the Red Sea.
All right.
You don't have to trust me. You can trust the scholar with the PhD.
All right. Yeah, but I already know that Sea of Reeds was just another way to say red. Because the reeds were red.
They weren't.
I think I learned that in a movie.
Definitely not.
It was like a religious movie.
I believe that. Yeah.
All right. I'm sticking to it. All right, let's get out of here.
All right, have a great one.